We welcome y'all at 360 Degrees Ministry today, and we thank y'all for coming out. Today's sermon will be coming from Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter, and the 13th through the 16th verse. And thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon, and it shall be when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back and cover that which cometh from thee. For the Lord thy God walketh in the midst of thy camp, to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. Thou shalt not deliver unto his master the servant which is escaped from his master unto thee. He shall dwell with thee even among you in that place where he shall choose in one of thy gates, where it liketh him best. Thou shalt not oppress him. Today's sermon will be coming primarily from the 14th verse. The enemy, you have an enemy in your camp. And it can be an enemy in your soul. It can be a physical enemy. But when we look at this verse, the Israelites was in camp. They was getting ready to go to war. So God was letting them know that even though they had enemies there around them, that they had to keep their camp clean and holy. They couldn't participate in whoredom and all kind of diseases and all kind of ill acts and killing one another and stuff like that, because he would be there among them. And as long as he was there among them, that they wouldn't be harmed, that he would deliver the enemy over unto them. Now, sometimes you can be in a place and you can have enemies that you think are your friends. And they'll be in your camp. They'll even come up just like they did Jesus. Jesus, after the Last Supper, he had an enemy in his camp, one of his disciples, Judas. Judas went up and even gave him a kiss on the cheek because he was getting ready to deliver him over to his enemy. And he didn't want to draw a lot of attention to himself, so he did it with a kiss. He kissed Jesus on the cheek so that the enemy would know that the one he kissed was the one they was to seize. And they did it while Jesus was among the people. He was delivering a message, and this enemy was in his camp. Now, a lot of times we have these enemies around us, and they'll come in. They'll just appear just like anyone else around us. All right. And you can't distinguish them from the other people. So you have to let the Holy Spirit help you to distinguish them by their spirit.
Come on,
because these enemies will look like ordinary people. They will say they're your friend. They will say they're your best friend. So they can get close to you. And when they get close to you, their intent will be to do you harm.
Amen.
They will even kiss you on the cheek. They'll give you a hug and tell you they wish the best for you. Right. They'll tell you they're praying for you. And at the same time, they're working against you. Right. Because they've been sent by the enemy so that they can deceive you. Let the enemy ease up in there and he can cause destruction in your camp. Because he can't get in there himself, so he used somebody that's close to you, whether it's a family member or a best friend or somebody that's supposed to be a friend, so that he can get next to you. Because he know you'll recognize him and won't let him get close to you. Right. So he want to use someone else. But God said that if you keep yourself holy, clean and pure, that he will identify this enemy for you. He will reveal this enemy to you so that you will know who it is. Right. And he will protect you from the harm that this enemy is trying to do to you. And not only will he protect you, he'll show you the plans of the enemy. He'll let you know what this enemy is up to. This enemy will be in your camp and think you don't know that they're there. But God said let him stay there, because he's going to already show you everything about that enemy before the enemy get there. Once he get there, he's going to reveal it to you. Long as you keep yourself holy and pure. Because when you become unholy, you start participating in sin and doing all kinds of things, then God will step back. And the enemy can have his way with you. And then there's enemies that you have within yourself. You have enemies that are enemies to your soul. Mm-hmm. You have fear. That's one of your biggest enemies.
All right.
That fear will cause you to participate or be afraid to do things that you should be doing for the Lord. There's an enemy called pride. Pride will help prevent you from going where you need to go for God. Pride will hold you back. It'll tell you, you better be ashamed. You don't want nobody to know what's going on. You can't do that because you don't want nobody to know. You want them to think this. You want them to think that. So that pride can be your enemy. Amen. As well as fear. And then you can have all kind of evil thoughts that the enemy can plant in your head. That's enemies in your camp. The camp is your soul.
All right. Now.
And the soul is a part of your spirit. And when you let those enemies enter into your camp, your personal camp, they can cause destruction.
Come on now.
He can also plant seeds of doubt in your mind and in your soul and tell you that God can't do what he said he do. That is an enemy to your soul. Because if you doubt God, you won't believe in the things that he can do. You might need a healing. You might need a blessing. But if that enemy, doubt, has entered your spirit, you won't believe that God will provide for you when you're down to your last dollar. You won't believe that God will deliver your children because that seed of doubt, which is your enemy, has been planted in your mind. And you won't be able to believe. You will have a spirit of disbelief. You won't be able to see and remember the great things God has done for you. The enemy will plant that seed of fear in your mind and tell you, yeah, you can have that car over there, but you don't have the money to do it. So ain't no need for you to go out there and try to get it. So you will hold back and not attempt to get what you need because that enemy of fear has been implanted in your camp, in your spirit. And you believe that spirit of fear over your faith. You have to have the faith that is your friend. Anything else other than strong faith is an enemy. Amen. Anything else that the devil tell you is your enemy. He will tell you that you out there, you done got yourself in this situation. Sometimes we get in situations because we don't listen to God. Amen. We don't obey God. Sometimes it's not from the enemy. The reason we are in trouble or have things happen to us is because we disobeyed God or we didn't follow his instructions. So we get out there in the midst of this camp of enemies when God has already warned us that they was our enemies and told us not to go there. Right, but we went there anyway. And now that we are there, we are in the midst of a camp of enemies. And then those enemies start to attack us. They start to do things to us. And we think that it's the devil doing it to us. But the devil didn't do it to us. We put ourselves in that situation. We caused that to happen to us. We caused that harm. We brought it on ourselves because we didn't listen to what God told us. We didn't stay clean, pure, and holy. We went out there among those enemies. We knew those enemies was out there drinking and killing and doing all manner of sin. But we chose to go out there with them. So we have to face the consequences because sometimes God said when we don't do what he said do, he will step back. Mm-hmm. When he stepped back, you have to face that enemy on your own. You will be out there alone. Mm-hmm. And you need the protection of God. But when you're obedient, God said he will defend you from that enemy. He will show him to you. He will protect you and he will deliver you. That's just like God says it's only a light thing for him to do. It's only a light thing for him to deliver you from your troubles. He is able to do everything that he said, and he will do everything that he said. Right. It's just like when they was going against the Moabites, and they went out there without consulting God. You can't just go out here in the world and not consult God about what you should do. You need to consult him and get his instructions. Because when he give you instructions, they will be right. But when we lean to our own understanding and and we do what we think is right, we do what we think appear to be right, or what looks like is right, we will get in a bunch of trouble. They went out against the Moabites. They didn't ask God, should we go against the Moabites? They did on their own. And they got out there and they ran into a drought and a famine. They didn't have water to feed their animals. And they told each other, said, we surely gonna die now because we don't have any water to feed our animals or give them to drink or for ourselves. And they didn't know what to do except they thought they were going to surely die. But then they had a man of God among them. And that man of God, they asked him, what should they do? And that man of God went to Isaiah and asked Isaiah, what should they do? And Isaiah said, let me get the atmosphere right. Let me play some music so I can get a word from God, so I can consult God and hear what God has to say. And God told him, said, dig some ditches and you will have water. You won't know where the water came from, but when you need it, it'll be there. And they dug those ditches. And just like God said, after he had been consulted, they were filled with water every time they needed it. So you have to obey God. You have to keep your temple clean. You have to keep your body clean, your mind and your soul. You can't pollute it with all unclean thoughts and all unclean deeds. And then you can hear from God. You can hear. He will protect you from the enemy. He will show you the enemy. So you have to know that there's an enemy in your camp. It may be a physical enemy. And that physical enemy can't do you no harm long as God is among you and amidst you, because he will protect you. Every time that enemy come up against you and do something to try to destroy you, God will already show it to you. You already know it before it happened. You won't have to wait till it happened. He'll already be showed it to you. Just like he showed Jesus that Judas was going to betray him. When Judas went up to Jesus to kiss him on the cheek, Jesus asked, did you give me a kiss to betray me? And Judas knew in his heart that's what it was, because God had already showed Jesus. So know there's enemies in your camp. No matter where you are, there's enemies in the church. There's enemies against God. There's enemies in your home. Sometimes the enemy can be your family member. It can be your best friend. There's enemies in the workplace. There's enemies everywhere that you go. You can't escape enemies. But you have God among you. God will protect you. So don't be afraid when you know you're living right, because God will let you know that there's an enemy there. He will reveal it to them. No matter how they dress, how they look, they may look like they just an ordinary person. They may look like a sheep in wolf's clothing, or they may look like a wolf in sheep clothing. You may not be able to detect them by looking at them. You can't detect it by listening to their voice. You can watch them, and God will show you through their deeds and actions who they are. He will not let anything come upon you by surprise. Anytime an enemy steps through your door, your camp, he will let you know that the enemy is there, that you need to be careful how you proceed. He will let you know what you need to do. And if you keep your faith in him, follow him, listen to him, and obey his instructions, the enemy in your camp can't do you no harm.
All right.